In life, we have to learn how to deal with regret. Most people view regret as negative. When you think about it, it will be negative if it consumes your mind and it consumes your thoughts and it just really takes you over. But it could be a positive on the other end if you can learn from that regret, make different decisions going forward in the future, have better outcomes because of it. Regret could actually be a good thing. Today I'm going to talk to you about my regrets in collecting, figures that I regret passing on, how I learned from those lessons and have a much better future. And the third regret that I'm going to talk about, I didn't want to talk about it, but I'm going to talk about it. Coming up. First on my regret list here, I want to talk about my regret for missing out on Impossible Toys figures. In fact, my regret is so deep because most of these were clearance down to $20 or $30, now command well over $100 in some cases, and I did get a couple of the Quintessons, but not all of them, and I did happen to pick up a few other pieces, but not all of them. And I still think they're the best on the market today. Hopefully X-Transbots picks up where they left off, what are we, 6-7 years later? But Impossible Toys is a good company that made good figures, not great transforming figures, but most of theirs were the good non-transforming figures, and I actually have a handful that I like to use in my videos. Next up, I want to talk about my regret for passing on the X-Gokin version of Alpha Trion. I think he's a really good one. With all my research, he's the best one out there, but he's only about 6 inches tall, maybe a little shorter than 6 inches tall, so he's pretty short for a Masterpiece shelf. That doesn't mean he wouldn't look amazing on a Masterpiece shelf. He does, and I've seen him in multiple people's collections, and have to admit, I'm jealous. But I'm not looking to pay the prices that people ask for it when it pops up on eBay, and I'm also not looking to, try to hunt him down. I think that another company will make one, or maybe it'll get re-released. Who knows? Holding my breath until I'm blue in the face. My next regret is that last week I ate a cesium salami sandwich and didn't agree with me very well. But Perfect Fusion is a separate line from Fans Toys. The PFO1 Perfect Fusion cesium was going to be their version of this Dinobot, but the problem is I already had Scoria, and so looking at it and I go, well, I have Scoria. I pre-ordered this guy, I canceled my pre-order and said, well, I really don't need it. But it was a $130 figure who was bigger than Scoria, had a more modern design, little bit less die-cast. Hindsight, I wish I would have picked him up. Now he goes for 400 plus or whatever, and it's a pretty good figure. Then again, I have Scoria, so I guess I'm okay. But I always regret that. I'm like, why did I not do that? Now, back in those days, I wasn't doing what I do now. I don't get them and videotape them and review them like I do now. Back then, I was just collecting them. But nowadays, I do like to make videos, do comparisons. Then I just keep the one I like the most. Or I keep them both and put them in different displays. So I collect a little different now than I did back then. And it's kind of part of that regret. I can live with it. My next regret is not picking up Lupus, and it's because I saw it and I was only sort of like, sort of interested. Fans Toys was still trying to develop their name. They weren't as big of a name back then when Lupus came out as it is right now. All the reviewers bashed this thing one way or another, and I even watched reviews and I didn't even notice, but I always thought it was smaller. I thought it was more like the Fans Project size and not Fans Toys size. I didn't realize it was a full Masterpiece scale. And so that was another reason I passed on it, was my own ignorance. So just being ignorant, that's kind of why I passed on it. Nowadays, he commands a hefty price, and I wish I would have had him. I don't stay up at night, but Fans Toys come out and said that they're not reissuing this guy. So it's been official. I've seen it in writing. He's not getting reissued. I'm starting to wonder if this will be like something we see 5 years from now as a 2.0 version. Who knows? And then next, I've had 2 opportunities now to get all 3 of the Make Toys Seekers, and I passed because I'm stubborn and I have other Seekers that fill the slot. But now I'm starting to regret the fact I didn't pick them up when I had the chance. But there's good news for those of you in the know, or you watch my Sunday news that's coming up. You'll find out there's good news about Make Toys and the reissue schedule and a couple of things. They haven't specifically said these yet, but there's a rumor they're going to be reissuing these. There is fact that there is something else getting reissued from Make Toys coming soon. So getting into no regrets, my no regret zone, I learned from my past mistakes, so here I am now. First on that list is X-Transbots Arcos, and I passed on almost every one of the mini-bots. In fact, yeah, passed on all the mini-bots as they started getting released one after the other after the other. X-Transbots, Bad Cube, all of those companies putting these out, and I said, for 60 or 70 bucks, no. That little bitty figure, that small piece of plastic, no. I'll wait, I'll get it on sale, I'll catch one on clearance, I'll get one, maybe, someone will sell their used one for a good price. First run of all these doubled or tripled in price, and when I decided, hey, I'm gonna go ahead and start buying these things for 60 or 70 bucks, they were $150, $200, and sometimes $300 at that time for these little figures. So once they reissued Arcos, I picked them up. I snatched them up. I didn't wait. Then again, KFC's Crash Hog, I passed on it too because I was like, I didn't know if I was gonna complete that shelf or even work on that shelf, and do I even care about Junkions? And once he sold out and was really expensive and hard to get, I jumped on him again. Now, the good thing is nowadays you can get this guy for still under $100 several different places. He's not hard to get, and because of the reissue schedule, he's not hard to get now. Might he be hard to get a year from now if they decide not to reissue him and only his clone figures they're talking about making? Maybe. And it seems almost comical to even talk about this right now, but back in 2012, 2013, when I passed on MP10, and then I realized MP01 was just too big for all the figures that were coming out, just didn't scale well on the shelf as well. I really wanted MP10, and the price shot well over $300 everywhere on the secondary market. Once they sold out almost instantly on the primary market, I had to get them, and I had to get them. I fought so hard to get them. I actually bought a broken one, fixed it, and it was on my shelf for a couple years till I actually picked one up in a reissue. And that was a regret of mine, but I learned from that regret, and from that regret, now I'm not going to get rid of any of my MP10s that I have now because of the fact that it's part of history. It's a great figure. I enjoy them. I don't now regret having them. But it was so exciting when I finally got my hands on one, and then even more exciting when I got my hands on one that wasn't broken. So the next regret where I kind of learned my lesson was passing on these MMC cassettes. Like, I've already got Masterpiece cassettes. Why are they bothering with this? And then I was a little late to the game. Tried to go buy them when they were sold out, and people wanted an arm and a leg for them. So then they got reissued again, right? So when they got reissued, instantaneously I pre-ordered them. I bought them. I got them. I have them. And I'm not worried about it. They're on my shelf. I'm happy. And now I'm starting to hear people talking about how these guys are hard to get again. And there's absolutely no guidance on these specifically getting reissued. So I'm happy I have them. I learned my lesson. I have 100% faith eventually they'll get reissued. I'm guessing, and I'm hoping for everybody else out there. Last on my list of regrets that I learned my lesson, my no regrets list, is Fans Toys Sovereign. Now, this figure is one that I don't think is twice as good. It's probably like 50% better or 40% better than the DX9 option that's out there. So if you have either one, you probably would be happy with it. But I do have to admit, in the end, it is better. It does look better. It's a little shinier. It feels higher quality than the DX9. But I don't think it's leaps and bounds better. But I have to admit it is better. And I do like the M. Show Z came through for me and got me the M. Probably their last one before they had to start sourcing them locally When they do that, the price goes up. But looking at this, here's the difference between the two. I actually probably would have preferred the first version that was purpler. But then I'm hearing the purpler one is shiny, but not as shiny as the bluer, lesser purpler one. But anyway, this figure here is one of the ones where I learned my lesson. I picked it up. I'm happy. I don't know if they're going to do a reissue again on it. So the last part of my regrets that I want to talk about, and when I talk about these regrets, I didn't want to talk about it before, but these are figures that I bought that I liked at first, but I feel better ones came out, there's better options that are out or coming, and now I'm kind of like stuck with them. Or I got rid of them well in advance, and I don't really want anyone to get too upset because these are all good figures in their own right. Remember that. The first one I got is X-Transbots Apollyon. Now, I have to admit, I regret this one because I do like what Takara did so much better. I still think this has a lot of merit. I think he looks great. I'm going to be honest, I never transformed him. Never transformed him once. I didn't want to attempt it, mess with it. I heard of all the breakage issues, and I didn't want that to happen to my $150 figure. At the time I bought him, $150 was one of the top prices I had ever paid for a figure, so it was pretty expensive. Now he doesn't go for $150, but with that, I still have them. I appreciate them a little bit, but in the end, if I were to pick between this and the MP36, I pick the MP36 all day long. Next on my list of the regrets that I have because I had them and they were good is this DX9 Guap. It's not a bad figure. It looks cool. It looks solid. It stands solid. Super stable. It's not a bad figure. But it's not for my shelf. And having it, owning it, having it on my shelf and looking at it, I realized it wasn't for me. And this was this kind of a regret for me. I regretted buying it, knowing it. When I looked at it, I knew it wasn't Super G1. I knew eventually somebody would come out with more of a G1. KFC looks more G1, and then if and when we ever get the Fans Toys one, it would be more G1. But this guy does look big, massive, beefy. He has a presence. There's a lot of good things about him, but he wasn't for me, and that's why he's on my regret list. Next on my list of regrets is the Bad Cube War Dog. I picked him up, and I knew I didn't like the aesthetic. I knew it. I knew it from the pictures, and when you buy something you don't like the aesthetic because it's the only option out there, there's this whole predetermined, I know I'm going to regret this. And he's not a bad figure, and he doesn't look bad. He just doesn't look tuned, and I'm more of a tuned shelf. I know a lot of people will prefer this to what Fans Toys Sheridan's coming out. I know that. I understand that, and that's great. I mean, there's nothing wrong with preferring this, but it didn't fit my shelf very well, and so I wasn't happy with it as one of my regrets. Also, if you look at the Brawn and the Outback, I kept my Outback. I got rid of my Brawn as soon as I was able to get that Brawn from the Final Victory, because I felt the Final Victory looked more like what I thought Brawn looked like. So, I mean, there's some regrets. They're all great figures. And last on my list of regrets for even buying was Fans Projects Mindwipe. Now, again, it is a really cool looking figure. I don't like the stylized look of him. I do think he looks cool. I'm a sucker for purple. I had to buy it, I guess. But he's too small for a Masterpiece shelf, in my opinion. I like the Headmaster gimmick, of course, but I just never really liked the figure overall. And when Fans Toys announced that they were making their version of Mindwipe, I jumped all over it, and I can't be happier. And I guess Fans Toys, I would like a more of a purple color. I would like Fans Toys color to be more like this color. But anyway, nitpicks. Still, not a bad figure. Wasn't for me. Therefore, on my regrets list. One thing about collecting is that everybody's experience is a little bit different. Let me know about your experiences down below. What do you think about? What are your regrets? How do you handle your regret? Do you get over it quickly? Do you move on? Or do you dwell like I kind of used to? Like, subscribe, and Titanium Hanger out.